What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Martian MMA podcast. I'm your host, The Martian, also known as John, here to talk about this week's UFC card going down this Saturday in Abu Dhabi, headlined by Cory Sandhagen versus Umar Nurmagomedov in the bantamweight division, along with 13 fights in total, starting at a different time. It's 12 p.m. Eastern for us people on the East Coast. Look it up for your time zone according, but nice daytime card for us. It'll be over by 6-7 o'clock. Let us get out on Saturday night for a change, and the card's looking all right top to bottom. I think there's some definite bum fights on it, but there's also some fun ones and some good betting angles as always. I like a good amount of spots on this card. Last week it was a bad week for me, just a bad week. No other way around it. I always do pretty poorly, I think, on these London cards, and this just, added to the streak. I just think I was off on the majority of stuff I said last week. The Bukakas decision, Preston Parsons, Manel Kopp, Callan Logren, all of those were bad. Although I'm happy with Manel Kopp, honestly. I was fine with that money line bet. Bobby Green I was wrong on, Curtis Blades, Leon Edwards, I did do some winning bets, that goes the distance in the Leon and Bilal fight in the main event. I was on that one, Gregory Rodriguez, Hobo Cop money line. And but overall, a bad week. I'm not trying to make excuses. It was definitely a bad week of predictions. And I just got to, recognize going forward that I got to be very, very light on these London, England cards because I suck on them. It was in Manchester, but, same shit. Anyway, that's enough about last week. We're going to get into these fights this week at 13, and we're starting things off in the Premier Division. Always a good time when we start things off in the Premier Division. We got Cedric Dumas taking on Dumas-Tiuliulin. Odds, courtesy of Bet Online, have Dumas minus 220, Tiuliulin plus 185. Electric fight to start things off here. And Tiuliulin is somehow getting a sixth fight in the UFC despite being 1-4, getting finished in all four of those losses. And Cedric is getting another chance in Abu Dhabi. He's 1-0 in the UAE. So, he's looking to keep that streak going. Not really sure how this guy is traveling internationally with the list of felonies that he has. But, we know that Tiuliulin is a brawler on the feet. He comes forward, but he's not a good grappler. I mean, he is terrible on the ground, especially once he gets put flat on the mat. He freaks out, he panics, he gives up his back, he gives up the mount. And it's not like Cedric Dumas has a good wrestling arsenal, but the fact that if he gets on top at any time in this fight, Tiuliulin is probably going to spaz and give up his back and get choked, makes it pretty hard for me to have any faith in Tiuliulin. Even on the feet, I think Cedric has a shred of an idea of trying to keep distance and use his length and throw some leg kicks and his jab. We saw that at times of the Abu fight. And I just think he's much more likely to win this fight in clear fashion, considering he has that grappling upside. And I took Dumas sub earlier on FanDuel. It dropped at plus 420. Already got bet down to 310, which I still think there's some value on, but 420 I was really happy to get. I got some of that and the sub 2-3 plus 1,000 for Dumas. And I mean, even up 300, like I said, at any moment if Dumas gets on top here, Tiuliulin is going to do his best to give that submission up. So I think it's probably accurately priced where it's at. No interest in anything Tiuliulin, and I'm sticking with those Dumas sub and sub 2-3 props to start things off. Next fight in the lightweight division, we got Jai Herbert taking on Herbert-Bedoya. Odds for this one have Herbert minus 145, Bedoya plus 125. Bedoya going down to 155 here after two losses at 170. And, two competitive fights just came up short in them. But dropping down to 155, I think is a good move for him. Initially, I was thinking Jai Herbert was going to win this fight. I was just kind of going with the more experienced guy. But then I did some tape. I rewatched the recent fights, and I'm completely switching. And I like Bedoya here. And I think I'm going to end up on him at plus money. I do endorse him for a bet at plus money because I just think he's going to throw way more strikes, man. I mean, Jai Herbert has landed 38 strikes to the head in his past 45 minutes in the cage. His past three fights all went to decision, and he landed 38 strikes to the head in those. I mean, he's just not throwing a whole lot of strikes. He's looking to grapple more. He's looking to clinch, but I don't think his takedowns are any good. And even if he gets a takedown, his grappling on top isn't very good. So kind of an interesting thing going on with Herbert in his career right now. I don't want any part of it. He's just too low volume for me. And Bedoya, he's enthusiastic. He throws a lot of strikes. He throws leg kicks. He was very high volume in both of his losses. I believe he landed more than 100 strikes in both of those losses. A lot of people thought he beat Chaos Williams, and that was a short notice fight against an established guy in Williams. And a bunch of people had him winning that decision, landing 149 strikes there and 112 in a loss to Song Kanon, which he kind of just ran out of steam a little bit. But I think the fact that he's been in the UFC for a year now, he's dropping down in weight, he's getting a little more serious, he's training with the guys to shoot the box. I think we're going to see the best Bedoya here, and I think he's just going to throw more strikes, and that's why I like him. Against Jai Herbert here, I do think this fight is probably going to hit the scorecards as well, but the best bet on the fight, I believe, is the Bedoya money line. So GTD minus 150, I do think that is a good price, but I'm going to be sticking with just the money line on Bedoya here. Maybe look at some Bedoya over significant strike props. I think those did just drop on DraftKings, so I'm going to pull them up right now before I move on to the next fight. Gonna take me 1 second here. We are sitting at 59.5 strikes for Bedoya, man. I like that. I like that for sure. I mean, how could you not? With the fact that I just said he's averaging a crazy amount of strikes in his first 2 UFC fights. So I like that in addition to the money line. We're moving on to a women's fight in the strawweight division. Victoria Dudakova, Sam Hughes coming back as the underdog. We have Dudakova minus 175, Hughes plus 150. I like Hughes here as well as the underdog, and when it's on the feet, I think it should be very competitive. We did see Dudakova show a bit of her striking in the last fight versus Jinyu Fry. It looked all right, definitely nothing impressive, but serviceable. And I think Sam Hughes is a bit of the same caliber. She's a decent striker, and she's fought a lot of good women in her career so far. This is, I think, a pretty big step down for some of the women she's been facing lately. And the takedowns are a big thing in this fight because Dudakova likes to hit takedowns in her fights, but I actually think her wrestling is not very good, and I think that Sam actually probably has the better wrestling and grappling here. I mean, the one time we've seen Sam really pursue takedowns, she got them very easily against Elise Reed and, dominated that fight from top position, landing a lot of ground and pound and stopping her in the 3rd round. While Dudakova, when she gets on top, she doesn't really even pass guard. I mean, in her Contender Series fight, she was letting Silva back to her feet multiple times there. And I just get the impression, I mean, I saw it in the Jinyu Fry fight, she would shoot a takedown, she'd get initially stopped, and then she wouldn't chain anything together. It's not like she has a deep wrestling arsenal. So I think that if she doesn't hit that initial first takedown, which Sam should be able to stop, I think she's going to go back to striking. And honestly, Sam probably has more wrestling upside here, which is why I like her. And we always know that that Hughes has great cardio as well, and I think that's another benefit for her here. So I think Sam's just gonna hustle and bustle her way to a decision win here. The fight to go the distance is 80% minus 400. That's certainly happening. This one is definitely hitting the cards, unless Sam Page just fucking puts a beating on her like she did to Elise Reed and gets that stoppage. But best bet on the fight, Sam Hughes money line to me, and definitely be looking out for her money line in the live line as well. We're moving on to a lightweight fight in where we have Guram Kutateladze taking on Jordan Vukovic, making his UFC debut. Odds for this one have Kutateladze minus 235, Vukovic coming back plus 200. So Vukovic has been a very established guy in Cage Warriors for a long time, mostly fighting at 145. His last fight was at 155. Only an 82-second fight, not fighting a good guy. He quickly guillotines him. I don't think that fight was super, conclusive at all. It didn't really teach us anything new. So you got to wonder, how is Vukovic going to do at 155? I think it's definitely a good thing for him here because he's getting into the UFC without having to cut as much weight. So making that 155 should be fine for him here. And he doesn't have to travel, that far. If he were American, he would have to cross the whole Atlantic Ocean, but he's in England, so he's a little closer to the UAE. And Guram is just kind of underwhelmed in his career so far. I think the guy's a solid fighter, but just really hasn't been able to string it together. He's been inactive. He had 2 close fights versus Gamrot and Demir. Got lucky to win one of them. Was winning most of the Brenner fight before running out of steam and getting knocked out there. And one of the best fights of the entire 2023. That fight was so sick. I just rewatched it again today, and just absolute banger of a fight. And a great comeback by Brenner, who we're going to talk about a little bit later. But, Guram, like I said, very skilled fighter. I think in all realms, offensive grappling, defensive grappling, his striking, I think, is really solid. But he just struggles to mix it all together. And I think cardio is a definite issue for him. I think he struggles to keep up his pace over 15 minutes. And that's what led to him, slowing down and getting finished versus Brenner, despite winning both of those early rounds. So I think Guram should probably win the fight because his takedown defense is pretty solid, I mean, he's not easy to take down. Once he gets finally put on bottom, he can get stuck there a little bit. We saw that in times in the Gamrot and the Demir fight. And Vukovic is definitely looking to grapple. He's a primarily grappler, and he has been taking down a lot of guys in Cage Warriors. But, dude, he was a big featherweight, and he was fighting not so good featherweights, and he was able to take him down and steamroll him. I don't think he's going to have nearly as much success in the UFC out-grappling these guys. And, his past 5 wins all by sub, and then before that, he had 3 split decisions in a row, which means when he's not finishing you, he's likely taking you to a close fight. And, I think most of those were 5-round fights. 2 of them were 5-round. Oh, no, only one of them was 5-round fights against Charrier. So I think Vukovic will definitely do well in the UFC, but I'm not going to pick him to win here. And I mean, I believe someone said his sub is, I think plus 700. Let me check what it's at now. 600 on some books. Yeah, I mean, no, I fuck that. I don't think that's worth it. I mean, plus 200 for money line versus sub 600. No, I think it's I don't know. I really don't have a super strong take on this fight, but I'm not really interested in any bets on that one. So we're moving on to heavyweight division. Shamil Gaziev, Dontel Mayes. Odds for this one: Gaziev minus 265, Mayes plus 225. Again, not a fight I have a whole lot of confidence in. I think Gaziev should win just because Mayes is not very coordinated in there. I mean, this guy's boxing is so bad. I mean, it's the most uncharacteristic bullshit you've ever seen. It somehow works because it's heavyweight against some guys, but I mean, Gaziev slows down, obviously, but I don't think he's gonna, slow down before getting out to a really, really early lead here, and he might even just melt Mayes in the first round or two with his pressure and his volume striking. If it gets, later on in the fight over 1.5 rounds, it's going to be interesting. It might be worth to take a live bet on Dontel Mayes, but Mayes doesn't push a pace, dude. His cardio himself is not that good. He's not a hard hitter that he's going to capitalize and finish Gaziev. So I think it should be either an early Gaziev finish or maybe a 29-28 for Gaziev, where he clearly wins the first 2 and then kind of falls off in the 3rd round, but still clings on to victory. So not an interesting fight there. No bets on that one. Moving on, lightweight division, Muhammad Yahya taking on Fernandes. Odds for this one have Fernandes minus 400 and Yahya coming back plus 300. So the hometown fighter, the UAE fighter, Yahya coming in as a big dog plus 300. He did lose his UFC debut in Abu Dhabi as well, in pretty convincing fashion versus Trevor Peek. He just looked bad there. I mean, I said this earlier, but I thought his skill, it looked fine. And it's not like this guy was like, oh man, I can't believe how bad he is at striking, grappling, clinching. It wasn't that. It's just the guy barely fought in there. He didn't show any aggression. He barely threw any strikes. He just was kind of mentally checked out in that fight. I don't know what was going on there. Hopefully we see some improvements. Maybe the sheiks of Abu Dhabi tossed him some money to throw that fight for Trevor Peek. But Fernandes, I think, a little bit different, where the fight against Diakese was somewhat close, but I just thought he looked like shit there in all areas. I mean, I thought his striking, his grappling, his cardio, his defensive grappling once he was on bottom, it was all terrible. So this is a total bum fight. I mean, both these guys stink, but one guy is 80% minus 400, which I think has to be wrong. With how sloppy Fernandes is, I can't agree with minus 400. So I don't see anything good from Yahya. I don't see anything promising. We're like, oh, Yahya is going to expose this from Fernandes. But with how bad Fernandes is at stopping takedowns, getting off his back, and he consistently slows down in these fights, I think a small bet on Yahya here is warranted. I mean, they have Fernandes round 1 at plus 170. I mean, this guy is just not good enough to warrant that kind of price, to think that he's going to finish early. I know most of his wins have come by early finish, but I can't endorse anything related to Fernandez here. So the only option to bet here is Yahya or pass. And I think money line is probably worth a small bet, and just hope for the best and hope the bum fights end up with the plus 300 bum winning. Light heavyweight division next: Alonzo Menifield, Azamat-Murzakanov. We have Murzakanov as the favorite, minus 194. Menifield coming back plus 169. I don't think Murtzakanov's going to have much trouble here, man. He's like an old and unassuming guy. He's not like super athletic, only 5'10" at the weight, only 71.5 reach at the weight, which is wild. I mean, John Jones' weight class, he fought who had an 84-inch reach. So think about that. Jones would have a 12.5-inch reach advantage on Murzakanov. But I've always maintained that Menifield isn't really a great fighter. He's just kind of an athletic freak. And I think, the most functional he's ever looked as a fighter was against guys like Jimmy Crute, Ed Herman, not exactly like the cream of the crop here. And he somehow managed to lose a decision to William Knight, which is just remarkable. So I think Azamat is just going to outbox him here, man. I was watching Azamat's hands earlier today, and he is quick. He has good hand speed. He knows how to mix it up to the head and body pretty well. He can even mix in a takedown here and there, which I don't think he's gonna do. But if he wants to, he probably should be able to do so. And but I just think he's just going to outbox Menifield here, man. I just think he's the much better boxer. He's quicker, and he slows down a little bit. Definitely tails off in the third round. But so does Menifield. It's 205. And Murzakanov, despite slowing down, he has 2 round 3 finishes in the UFC, where those fights were, I think the Clark fight was just a one-sided beatdown, but the Tafon fight was like a 1-1 fight, maybe even a 2-0 Tafon fight, and he came back to win that one via flying knee. So I think Azamat's fine here. The fact that he's 35, hasn't fought in about 16 months is maybe making me a little tentative. I'm not going to endorse laying the near minus 200 on him, but I really do think it's fine. I don't think Azamat's going to have a ton of trouble here. And that's going to do it for that one. We're moving on to, I think, the first fight on the main card. Yep, 6-fight main card, kicking things off in the lightweight division. Joel Alvarez, Elvis-Brenner. Really fun fight here. Alvarez is the favorite at minus 163. Brenner coming back plus 143. I mentioned Brenner earlier from that incredible comeback versus Guram, and always been a very skeptical guy about Joel Alvarez. For good reason. The guy is not a really functional fighter. He pulls off a lot of wins via finish, but he doesn't really have like a consistent game, right? So most of his wins have come by sub, 17 wins by sub, but he sucks at wrestling. He's a terrible defensive wrestler, and he doesn't really have an offensive takedown arsenal of his own right either. And I'm pretty sure his takedown defense is 0%, if I'm not mistaken. I heard them saying that in his last fight, but I'm pretty sure every time he's attempted to be taken down in the UFC, he's been taken down. Now, he has submitted a few of those guys afterwards, but still, that's not really a good, 0% takedown accuracy, being taken down 2, 4, 5, 6, 8 times. Incredible statistic. So, Brenner is a madman. He really is. He trains at Shoot the Box. He totally embodies that style, and he is a fun action fighter on the feet and on the ground. He's not a good defensive wrestler of his own right, but as I mentioned, Joel Alvarez's wrestling isn't very good. Despite him having 17 out of 20 wins by sub, he doesn't really have a reliable way to get the fight to the floor. So that makes me think that him being the favorite here is a little off. And I think that when it's on the feet, it's going to be high intensity, car crash exchanges between these two. And I just trust Elvis-Brenner a lot more in those. He does have a little bit of a susceptible chin. We have seen it get cracked at times, but he has that fucking dog in him. You cannot deny that. We've seen him hurt and dropped and cut, and he still comes back and wins. And I just think he's much more proven. I like his cardio better. He has very good cardio. He's just resistant in these fights, man. You can out-grapple him and you can beat him up, and he's not going to stop coming at you. While I don't think Joel has that same dog in him. And I think it'll be Elvis here. I think Elvis plus money, where it's at now, is likely fine. I really think this fight should probably be closer to a pick'em, but Alvarez is a front-loaded fighter. I think he's probably going to have his best chance to win early on. So I wouldn't knock anybody waiting for a play on Elvis-Brenner live, but the Brenner KO 2-3 props have been a prop that it's actually hit, obviously in the one fight against Guram. I was on it versus Kanyan. Unfortunately, he got that one right at the end of the first round, but that's just a good prop for Brenner fights. KO 2-3 plus 1100. I think it correlates a lot with his way to win here. So that'll be the main bet I'm on before the fight. And I'm undecided if I'm going to get in on Brenner before the fight or wait for live, but I'm leaning towards waiting for live as of right now. We are moving on to the second and final women's fight on the card in the strawweight division. Mackenzie Dern, Lupita Godinez, two established women here. We have a near pick'em. Dern minus 117. Godinez coming back minus 103. Both these women have a pretty questionable, IQs. Well, Godinez makes a lot of strange mistakes in the fight that actually kind of lead to her chances of losing the fight increasing. Dern is kind of dumb, but in a way that is good for her chances to win, She kind of just barrels forward nonstop and tries to get those takedowns. And in her last fight against Lemos, really a fight she could have won, despite getting absolutely dogged in the second round there. I mean, she got hurt a lot, and she even got outstruck a lot in the first round. I mean, she got her takedowns, and she won the third round clearly, and she might have even won the first round with that late takedown. I mean, she got outstruck for the first 2.5 minutes. Then she hit a double leg. She got on top for 2.5 minutes, and somehow the judges all agreed that Lemos won that round, which is not really how we see judges score the fight. So different judging, she could have pulled that victory off despite absorbing all that damage. And I'm just impressed with Dern, the fact that she came back to win that third round after getting her ass kicked so badly in the second there. She definitely does a good job maximizing her chances to win. She doesn't have good wrestling. Her footwork sucks. Her striking sucks. But she'll come forward and she'll try to make something happen the entire time, which is why I'll be leaning with her here, because Lupita herself loves to grapple, loves mixing in the takedowns, and I just don't think that's a real legitimate path here with Dern, because Dern will be a threat from bottom with her subs and sweeps, and if she can get on top, obviously Dern is much more likely to maintain that top position than Lupita. On the feet, Lupita definitely has the advantage, but she's just not a measured enough striker, I think, to really outbox Dern here. If we could trust Godinez to land strikes and to sprawl and brawl and to avoid the grappling at all costs, then she could be the favorite here. She could pull this off and win a decision, but with how many mistakes she makes and how she likes to lean into the grappling her own right, I just don't trust it. And even some of her striking fights lately have been real close. I mean, the Ricci fight was a split decision that, possibly could have gone the other way as well. Ducati, she managed to land, Ducati landed 112 strikes on her. Cynthia Calvillo landed 104 strikes in a split decision. So when it's on the feet, Lupi is not really separating from these women. So I just don't trust Lupi. I think Dern has the more upside at the pick'em price, and I will be going with Dern here. And I'm going to end up on her for a bet as well, just waiting to see where the line goes. But anything under minus 125, I think is good for Dern, to win a unit and a half, something like that. That's going to move us on to the welterweight division. Tony El Kukui Ferguson taking on Michael Chiesa. Odds for this one, Chiesa minus 640. Ferguson coming back plus 465. Tony Ferguson has lost 7 fights in a row in the UFC. I think BJ Penn has also lost 7, but that's probably a record that's never going to be broken again. I mean, geez, how much can they keep letting this guy lose? And it's not like these losses are just soft losses. I mean, some of these fights he's gotten his ass absolutely whooped. Some vicious knockouts, some thorough beatings that he's taken here. BJ Penn also has 7 losses. Only 2 KOs there. They were both TKOs. While Ferguson's been put out cold. He had nearly had his arm broken by Oliveira, nearly had his knee ripped apart by Beneil Dariush. He got beat up bad versus Bobby Green and finished in that fight. So I mean, dude, Tony Ferguson is absolutely shot to bits. Possibly the most shot fighter that we've ever seen. From And the thing is he, in these fights, he's had like a moment in some of the fights. He had a moment where I think he dropped Bobby Green. He had some early moment versus Paddy Pimblett. I couldn't remember. He dropped Michael Chandler in their first fight, but he doesn't have any composure. He doesn't have the physical attributes, the mental acuity to keep it together in a fight. So even if he has a moment here where he gets on top of Chiesa or he hurts Chiesa, I think it's just a matter of time before he makes a mistake and he ends up in a bad position somehow. And Tony Ferguson's bottom game has looked so fucking horrible in these fights. This guy was a high school wrestler, right? And Eddie Bravo has absolutely just ruined him. I mean, Eddie Bravo and the 10th Planet bullshit, the rubber guard, whatnot, has turned him into a guy who used to be able to wrestle and scramble, and now he just lays on bottom and he can't get up at all. I don't think he escaped bottom position one time in the Oliveira, the Dariush, the Chandler, or the Paddy fight, or even the Bobby Green fight. So. And he's been putting submissions in a lot of those fights. Oliveira had him in 3 subs. Beneil had him in 1. He obviously tapped out to Nate. He got choked unconscious by Bobby Green. So even where he used to be good in grappling, he is so far gone. And Michael Chiesa hasn't won a fight himself in over 3 years and has been having a lot of mental farts in these fights himself. The Luque fight, the Holland fight, getting subbed by Darces in both of them, and very winnable fights for him. And, you know, he actually fought pretty well against Sean Brady in between those 2 fights, coming back to rally and win the 3rd round after losing the first 2 there. But, you know, I'm definitely not endorsing Michael Chiesa minus 600. And there's no way you can bet that in any realm. But I just can't, there's no way that Ferguson is any type of value either. He has been an absolute donation in every single one of his fights. There hasn't been a cent of value on him in years. In all 7 of these losses, he hasn't looked like a live underdog. He hasn't looked like he had a chance to win any of them. So don't bet on Ferguson here, man. Like, he once was a legend. He is a complete shell of himself. It would be nice to see the guy get back on track and win a fight, but I don't think you should be wagering your money to do so. And I just don't see any wager on the fight that really catches my eye. The odds on Chiesa sub are no good. What, plus 120? That's shit. I mean, his ITD line is plus 110 and his sub line is 120. So if anyone's taking the sub, you're a fucking square to start with. And yeah, just no appealing bets there for me. Moving on. Fun fight in the bantamweight division. We have one of my all-time favorites, Deiveson-Figueiredo, taking on Marlon Vera. Odds for this one, Figueiredo favored minus 145. Chito coming back plus 125. So pretty binary fight here, I would imagine. You know, when it's on the feet, it's going to be competitive, but I think Marlon Vera has the more upside because he throws more strikes. Deiveson-Figueiredo, his output on the feet lately has just looked bad. He barely was throwing any strikes versus Cody. He dropped the first round there. He had a few moments where he hurt Rob Font, but it's just his volume isn't there. He's not throwing a lot of strikes. He's very patient. He's throwing very selective strikes. And it's not like Marlon Vera has a super high output of his own right, but I do think he is more likely to be throwing more distance strikes here as long as it stays on the feet. And then the grappling definitely favors Deiveson-Figueiredo. We know Marlon Vera's takedown defense, his bottom game is not very good. He gets taken down fairly easily, and then he plays guard. And I just think that Figueiredo, if he wants to pursue the takedowns here, he should hit those takedowns, and he should have the jiu-jitsu to out-grapple Vera and put him in bad positions, get a back take, keep him there. Figueiredo is like transitional grappling, and his jiu-jitsu is actually really, really good and an underrated part of his game. So I think once he gets these takedowns, I think he will, make the most of them. And despite being the smaller guy, despite him probably being past his prime, I do think he's going to win the fight. Not going to endorse a juice bet on him here because like I mentioned, the striking volume doesn't really inspire me. He got used to 5-round fights for a while, and now he's going back to 3 rounds. And like I said, the Cody Garbrandt fight, he just didn't really do much in the first round there. He kind of gave that round up. Second round, he pursued the takedowns hard. He got an easy submission there. But yeah, I'll just be cheering for my boy Deiveson here. I'm not going to be going with a bet on him, but I will pick him to win the fight. And I don't think there's any value on Marlon Vera either. I don't. And You just don't see any bets on the fight at all that really intrigue me. The goes the distance is heavily juiced. They have Fig sub 1200 on DraftKings. I think that's probably the best angle because I do imagine Figueiredo is going to pursue those takedowns, and Marlon Vera never been submitted in his career though, so that's why we're getting a good number. So maybe a small stab on Fig sub, but no real confidence there. I'm cheering for my boy Figgy hard though. I still love my man Figueiredo. And we're going to go ahead and move on to the co-main event where we have Shara Bullet Magomedov taking on Magomedov-Oleksiejczuk. Odds for this one. This is in the Premier Division, of course. Shara minus 230. McCall coming back plus 195. My boy Stunna had a good analogy for this fight. It's a kicker versus a crowder. Right, Shara likes the distance. He likes keeping it long range. He likes keeping it at a range where he can kick the legs and stay at a safe distance. He's not a striker who really likes engaging in the pocket. He's a very kick-first kind of fighter. And even when he finally hurt Tricoli and got him out of there, it was with a knee that eventually led to the finish there. While McCall, he's a marauder. He likes getting in close. He likes pressuring you. He likes getting in a boxing range. He's very aggressive. He likes ripping to the body and the head with that southpaw boxing. And he's probably going to do so here, and it's either going to go two ways. He's going to get kicked really hard coming in and probably get discouraged and either get hurt to the body and finish like he did versus Pereira, or he's going to get kicked really hard and he's going to kind of go pussy mode and just get kicked from the outside. Or he's going to get inside, throw some hands, mix it up to the head and body, get that pocket boxing going, and give Shara some problems. I can really tell that Shara's defense, his entire game is going to unravel when he gets pressured because he's so reliant on that kicking range and just not being pushed back. And you can see it in some of his fights already. When guys come forward and string together combinations, he doesn't really know how to retreat. He doesn't know how to fire back too well, and his defense falls apart. So I'll be cheering for my boy, as Ozzy would call him, Michael O, to get the win. He's let me down in several fights lately as the underdog. I'm going with him again, though. I'll ride with him again at plus 200 for a small bet, probably a little less than a unit. But we're gonna know how this fight's gonna go from an early standpoint. If McCall comes out on the pressure right away, it's good for us. He's maximizing his chances to win. If he comes out fighting like a bitch and fighting at distance and trying to do like a kickboxer impression, then we're in trouble. But I do think he's gonna pressure. He's gonna do his best to win, and McCall's got that dog in him, man. I mean, remember the Chidi and Jaquani fight? That was just a year ago. He was getting beat up early on in that fight. He absorbed some big shots, and just he didn't give a fuck. He kept coming. So I don't think McCall is gonna fight bitchmade here. I know he fought 2 losses in a row. 60-second loss, 90-second loss. I'm not really holding that against him too much. I still think the old dog's a bad matchup for Shara here, and I'll ride with McCall. I mean, Shara is just not a good fighter at all, man. I mean, we know his takedown defense and his bottom game sucks, especially his bottom game. His takedown defense, well, to be determined. Bruno Silva hit some clean double legs on him. But we know that he played guard and laid on his back for long periods of time there. So we know it's just a matter of time before Shara gets exposed. And even his striking, man, I don't think his striking is that good. And it's not a super functional striking game. I wish, it's a shame we didn't put our boy Hobocop versus Shara. I mean, Hobocop would have absolutely put a boxing and grappling lesson on Shara, just like he did to CLD last week. But I'll just martingale on fading Shara here, to be honest. So, last fight, main event time, bantamweight division. Get a sip of water here. The undefeated Umar Nurmagomedov making his UFC main event debut, taking on Cory Sandhagen, fighting in, I think, his 5th 5-round fight, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe even more. No, I think it's only 4. Not that it matters. So we have the line here. Umar minus 310, Cory coming back plus 260. I like Cory Sandhagen, very cool fighter, very cool guy, very intelligent fighter. But this matchup, I think, is not good for him. We know Cory is a fantastic striker, and when the fight's in the feet, he's one of the most difficult guys to deal with. And I would love to see Sandhagen fight Sean O'Malley. I think it would be a really great matchup. But I just don't see him getting past this one here, because most of Cory's trouble in his career has come from grappling, right? One of his first fights, we saw him get taken down and almost submitted by Yuri Alcantara. Got put in some deep submissions there. Aljamain Sterling violated him, took him down, and instantly took his back. Rafael Sunsao got him down 4 times. TJ Dillashaw not only took him down twice, but amounted 8 minutes of control time in that fight. A lot of clinching against the cage, pushing him to the cage, kind of getting a body lock, knee in the thighs. And I think Cory struggles a little bit with, breaking the body lock and avoiding the grappling from some of these guys. So most of his trouble in his career has stemmed from grappling. And he's probably fighting, besides Aljamain Sterling, probably the best grappler he's fought to date. And Umar is relentless with these takedowns. He is going to pursue these takedowns with absolute, tenacity, and he's not going to stop pursuing them. And his control on the ground is really, really good. He's really skilled at getting to the back take. He knows how to navigate around, the guard, top half guard, and look to pass when it's safe. He's very economical on top. And if he gets these takedowns here, he's very likely going to keep Cory Sandhagen down. And I think that is the most likely thing that's going to happen here, is that Umar is going to hit the takedowns. He's going to control Cory for long periods of time. And it's probably going to get interesting in the later rounds, considering that Umar has never been the full 5 round. This will be Cory's 5th fight being scheduled for 5 rounds, and we have seen him actually go the full 5 4 times. TJ, Jan, Vera, Font. Oh, dude, he's fought 5 rounds more than that. He's fought 5 rounds like 7 times maybe, or been scheduled for it. So I think the late rounds could definitely get interesting, where Cory has that experience edge. Those takedowns might be a little harder for Umar to be getting in the later rounds, and I don't think Umar is going to have like an easy time getting these takedowns here, because his striking is not great, and I think that Cory is going to do a real good job at trying to stay off the cage here, try to stay in the center of the cage. He's a very intelligent fighter, knows how to control the space and the footwork around a fight. But I think eventually Umar is going to string together something here and eventually get a takedown, and those takedowns are going to lead to him banking rounds and eventually win a decision here. Do not see Cory getting submitted. He did give up his back, obviously to Aljamain, and we saw him give it up a little bit versus Song Yadong when he got taken down. I think he's going to be a little smarter here, knowing that I can't give up my back. So if he gets taken down, I think he's going to play it safe. He's going to defend. He's going to live to see the next round, and I think that's going to lead to him losing 3 out of 5 rounds here at least for a decision. So I do think this one's hitting the scorecards. Do think it's going all 5, and I do think it'll very, very likely be a Umar Nurmagomedov decision here, which is the most likely outcome according to the odds. So I'm not really providing anything groundbreaking there, and I don't like any bets on the final main event. The bets I like on the card, top to bottom: Cedricus Dumas sub and sub 2-3, Rolando Bedoya money line and his over significant strikes, Sam Hughes money line. Small bet on Muhammad Yahya money line, Alvarez-Brenner KO in the 2nd and 3rd. The Mac Mackenzie Dern money line, and last but not least, Michael O Oleksiejczuk money line. So good amount of plus money here. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 underdogs I like on the card. Hopefully Cedricus Dumas starts us off with a banger submission. That would really get me in a good mood after a couple weeks of mediocre analysis. I mean, some straight up bad. 2 cards ago was fine. But the 304 card was really bad, and then I forget what the card before that was, but that was like all time bad. So on a little bit of a rough streak with predictions now. Hopefully we can bounce back. And thank you all for listening. Hope you all enjoyed the podcast, got some good information, win some bets this weekend, and I'll see you all before the next UFC event next week. Peace out, everyone.